Israel just killed the wife of Iran's chief peace negotiator, not a military commander, not an IRGC officer, not a weapons facility. The wife of the diplomat who was actively working to end this war. The man who had a meeting with U.S. Vice President JD Vance scheduled for mid-April. The man who was the only person on earth trusted by both Iranian hardliners and Western diplomats to actually negotiate something real. His wife is dead. He is in a hospital bed in Tehran. And the one diplomatic channel that had any chance of ending this war has been obliterated. I am Michael Turner. This is day 34. And what happened yesterday in a residential neighborhood in northern Tehran is not just a tragedy. It is a turning point. The moment that peace stopped being possible and total war became the only path remaining. Let me tell you exactly what happened, who Kamal Kharrazi is, what he was negotiating, and why this strike may be the single most consequential decision Israel has made in this entire conflict. At approximately 3:17 in the morning on April 1st, 2026, Israeli F-35 fighter jets fired 2 precision-guided missiles at a residential home in northern Tehran. The neighborhood is upscale, civilian, residential, no military facilities nearby, no IRGC offices, no weapons storage, just homes, just families sleeping. The first missile struck the main structure. The second hit the section of the house where Kamal Kharrazi and his wife were sleeping. His wife was killed instantly. Kharrazi himself was pulled from the rubble seriously injured, a fractured pelvis, internal injuries, deep lacerations to his head and arms. 2 security personnel assigned to protect him were also wounded, one critically. The house was completely destroyed. Neighbors reported that the blast shattered windows 2 blocks away. This was not a warning shot. This was not a strike designed to send a message while minimizing casualties. 2 precision missiles, 3:17 in the morning, directly into the bedroom. This was an attempt to kill Kamal Kharrazi, and it succeeded in killing his wife instead. Now let me tell you who Kharrazi is, because his background is the reason this strike is so significant, and the reason Iran's response will be so severe. Kamal Kharrazi served as Iran's foreign minister for 8 consecutive years, from 1997 to 2005, under President Mohammad Khatami. Those were the years when Iran was most willing to engage with the West, when nuclear negotiations were possible, when regional diplomacy was functioning. Kharrazi was the face of that engagement, known in Washington, known in European capitals, known as someone who could negotiate seriously, who understood the gap between what Iran said publicly and what Iran could actually accept privately. After leaving the foreign ministry, Kharrazi became head of Iran's Strategic Council on Foreign Relations, the think tank that advises the supreme leadership on international affairs. He remained one of the most connected, most trusted, most experienced diplomatic minds in the entire Islamic Republic. When this war started, when Pakistan stepped forward to offer mediation, Iran's leadership chose Kharrazi to oversee negotiations. The choice was deliberate. Kharrazi had the credibility with Iranian hardliners, who trusted his decades of loyal service and the relationships with Western officials who knew him as someone who dealt in good faith. He was the bridge between 2 worlds that had almost no other points of contact, and he was making progress. According to Iranian officials, Kharrazi had been working closely with Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar to arrange a meeting. Not a direct meeting between Iranian and American negotiators, but a channel. Iranian representatives and U.S. Vice President JD Vance. Neutral ground in Pakistan, mid-April. Iranian officials would present counter-proposals to the American 15-point demand list, and Vance would have the authority to negotiate modifications rather than simply demand acceptance. Why Vance specifically? Because Iran saw Vance as the one figure in the American government who had expressed genuine skepticism about endless military campaigns, who might be willing to negotiate something real rather than accept only unconditional Iranian surrender. Kharrazi believed the channel was viable, Pakistani officials believed it was viable, and the meeting was on track. Yesterday morning, Israel destroyed it. 2 missiles, 1 wife killed, 1 negotiator in the hospital. 1 peace process ended. Now I want to be very direct about what this means strategically, because Israel knew exactly who Kharrazi was. Israeli intelligence does not make mistakes about the identities of its targets. Israel has maintained detailed surveillance files on every significant Iranian official for decades. Israel knew Kharrazi's name, his role, his location, his history, his current function as Iran's lead negotiator, and the diplomatic channel he was building. When Israeli military planners approved strikes on Kharrazi's home, they made a conscious decision. They decided that preventing the Vance meeting, preventing a negotiated settlement, preventing any diplomatic outcome that left Iran's government intact was worth killing a peace negotiator's family in their beds. That decision tells you everything about what Israel wants from this war. Israel does not want negotiations. Israel does not want a deal. Israel wants Iran destroyed, not weakened, not restrained. Destroyed. Every weapons facility, every command structure, every source of regional influence, every institution that could threaten Israel for the next generation. And if that goal requires 34 days of war and the death of a diplomat's wife and the collapse of the only peace track on the table, then in Israel's calculation, that is an acceptable cost. There are 3 reasons Israel made this calculation, and understanding all 3 explains why this war will not end in 2 to 3 weeks, despite everything Trump has been telling the American public. The first reason is that Israel does not trust any agreement, does not believe Iran will honor commitments, does not believe a negotiated settlement produces lasting security. A deal might end the current fighting, but it would leave Iran's government in place, would leave some military capability intact, would leave the possibility in Israeli eyes the certainty of future conflict. Israel prefers to continue the war now, destroy as much as possible, weaken Iran so thoroughly that it cannot reconstitute a serious threat for a generation. That calculation may be strategically coherent from Israel's perspective, but it means Israel has no interest in the peace process that Trump keeps telling the American public is progressing. The second reason is that Israel fears Trump might accept a deal that Israel considers insufficient. Political pressure in the United States is building. Gas prices are approaching $4. Public fatigue with the war is visible in polling. And Israel worries that Trump, facing economic and political headwinds, might accept Iranian concessions that fall short of complete dismantlement of Iran's military and proxy network. By killing Kharrazi's channel, by collapsing the Pakistan mediation before it could produce a proposal, Israel ensures that negotiations fail before they can produce an outcome Israel cannot control. The third reason is domestic Israeli politics. Prime Minister Netanyahu's government is under serious internal pressure. The Lebanon ground invasion is proving more costly than promised. Hezbollah is fighting with a ferocity that has surprised Israeli military planners. Casualties are higher than the public was prepared for, and Netanyahu needs victories, needs the destruction of Iranian nuclear facilities, needs the elimination of Iranian commanders, needs a legacy that justifies the scale of what this war has cost. A negotiated settlement that ends the war with Iran's government still standing gives Netanyahu none of that. Continued war with continued visible Israeli military achievements gives him political survival. So Netanyahu has every political reason to ensure diplomacy fails. And yesterday, it failed. Now let me tell you how Iran is responding, because the response matters enormously for where this war goes next. Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi held a press conference this morning. He stood at a podium, visibly controlled but visibly furious, and said this: "How can we negotiate while our diplomats are being assassinated? How can we trust any process when those engaged in peace talks are murdered alongside their families?" This strike proves that the United States and Israel are not serious about diplomacy. They want Iran's destruction, and they will kill anyone, even peace negotiators, to achieve it. That statement is not just rhetoric. It is a strategic declaration. It gives Iranian hardliners the argument they have been making since the war started, that diplomacy is pointless, that the West cannot be trusted, that engagement leads only to assassination. Every Iranian official who had been arguing for negotiations, every moderate voice that said a deal was possible, has been handed a crushing defeat by the missile that killed Kharrazi's wife. The hardliners were right. That is what Tehran is absorbing this morning. And when hardliners are right, hardliners gain power. And when hardliners gain power, the prospect of a negotiated settlement moves further away. Iran's supreme leadership sent a message through intermediaries this morning. The message said that the killing of a diplomat's wife proves the enemy seeks only Iran's destruction, that there can be no negotiation with those who murder peace itself, and that Iran will respond. The statement specifically said Iran would ensure the world knows who is responsible for this war's continuation. That is not the language of surrender. That is not the language of a government preparing to accept American terms in 2 to 3 weeks. That is the language of a government that has just watched its most important diplomatic asset nearly killed and his wife murdered, and has decided that the only remaining option is escalation, and the retaliation will reflect that decision. Iran still has missile capabilities that have not been fully degraded by 34 days of strikes. Iran still has drone networks. Iran still has proxy forces in Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. And Iran will use them with a ferocity and a deliberateness shaped by the understanding that diplomacy is no longer available. When you remove the possibility of peace, you remove the incentive for restraint. And Iran has just had that possibility removed by 2 missiles fired at 3:17 in the morning into a civilian home. Now I want to address Trump directly, because Trump's silence since this strike is as revealing as anything else in this story. Yesterday, the same day Israel bombed Kharrazi's home, Trump gave an address to the nation, said core objectives are nearing completion, said the war will end in 2 to 3 weeks, said Iran is broken and ready to surrender, said negotiations are progressing, said victory is close. And hours after that address, Israel killed the wife of the man running those negotiations. Trump has said nothing since. No statement, no condemnation, no acknowledgement that the diplomatic process he described as progressing has been destroyed by the ally he claims to be coordinating with. The silence forces one of 2 conclusions, and neither reflects well on the administration. The first conclusion is that Trump knew about the strike in advance and approved it, in which case everything he said about negotiations progressing and peace coming in 2 to 3 weeks was a deliberate lie. You do not kill peace negotiators when you want peace. You do not bomb the home of the man building the channel to your vice president when that channel is genuinely functioning. If Trump approved this strike, he has been lying to the American public about the state of diplomacy from the beginning. The second conclusion is that Trump did not know. That Israel planned and executed a strike on a senior Iranian diplomatic figure without informing the United States in advance or seeking American approval, in which case Trump does not control this war, does not control his ally, does not control the outcomes he keeps promising. Netanyahu is making decisions that directly determine whether American soldiers continue to be shot at, whether American gas prices continue to rise, whether American students remain in danger abroad, and Trump has no authority over any of it. Either Trump lied or Trump has no control. Those are the options. And either way, the 2 to 3 week timeline is not a forecast. It is a fantasy. Let me also tell you the broader pattern that this strike fits into. Because Kharrazi's wife was not the first family member of an Iranian official killed in this war, and yesterday's strike did not happen in isolation. On the first day of the war, the strike that killed Iran's supreme leader also killed his daughter, his son-in-law, his granddaughter, and his daughter-in-law, entire family. On March 17th, the strike on Ali Larijani killed family members alongside him. On March 26th, the strike on Admiral Tangsiri hit his family compound. Some family members survived, some did not. The pattern is systematic. Strike the official, kill the family, send the message to every other Iranian official that no one around them is safe. That message has now been received throughout the Iranian government, and the message it is sending back is the one that Araghchi delivered this morning. There is no point in negotiating with people who will kill your family while you negotiate. So here is where we are on day 34. Kamal Kharrazi is in a hospital bed in Tehran. His wife is dead. The Pakistan mediation channel is destroyed. The Vance meeting scheduled for mid-April will not happen. Iranian hardliners have the argument they need to shut down any remaining diplomatic tracks. Iran's leadership has signaled that retaliation is coming without the restraint that the prospect of negotiations had previously imposed. And Trump is silent. The war that was supposed to end in 2 to 3 weeks will not end in 2 to 3 weeks. The negotiations that were supposed to be progressing are not progressing. The peace that was supposed to be close is not close. And the man who is doing the work to make peace possible is lying in a hospital while his country buries his wife. I am Michael Turner. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because what comes next in this war is going to be shaped by what happened yesterday morning in northern Tehran. Iran's retaliation will not be targeted at military assets alone. When a government decides diplomacy is impossible and restraint is pointless, it strikes everything, and we will see what that looks like in the coming days. Tell me in the comments, was this strike a legitimate military target? Or was this Israel deliberately killing the peace process to ensure the war continues on its terms? And do you think Trump knew? I will see you in the next update.